So this question here, we're looking at taking a quadratic and we're looking at putting it in completed square form. Now, there's a couple of techniques that we can use for doing this. First technique is we can look at directly factorising the quadratic by first taking it a big common factor and focusing on the parts involving an x or an x squared. Second technique that really comes up is we look at expanding the completed square form brackets and then comparing up the coefficients and working from there. Now I'm going to work through both of them for you just to demonstrate, and again with something like this, multiple techniques, pick the one that works best for you. Key things you need to be able to do, understand it and get it right. So first one, what I'm going to do is I'll split it down the middle here. If I look at it and I've got my negative 2x squared minus 12x plus 7, first thing to do is focus on just this part here. Take it a common factor so you're left with just an x squared term. So I'll end up getting negative 2 bracket x squared plus 6x plus a 7. What I'm then going to do is focus on just inside the brackets, and I'm going to factorise this in the same style I would if I was doing completed square form without an a coefficient in it. So what I'd do is I'd make it negative 2 bracket x plus 3 squareds, but then I'd have to make sure I corrected it by taking away the 3 squared. Again, as I normally would. So essentially all I've done is my completed square form from previously, from that 5, on that little section in there, and then just going to expand it a little bit more with the negative 2 and the plus 7 outside of that. So I've got my plus 7 there. So start by looking again in the brackets. I'll just fix the 3 squared. So I've got negative 2 bracket x plus 3 squared minus 9 plus 7. I'm then going to re-expand this bracket here with a negative 2 and then sort it all up and I should get my final answer. So I'll end up getting negative 2 bracket x plus 3 squared. I've then got negative 2 times negative 9, which gives me plus 18, and then I've still got the extra plus 7 outside. So I get negative 2 bracket x plus 3 squared plus 25. So that there is one technique for doing it. So I just focus on the x parts and the x squared parts and work it through that way. Second technique is taking the a bracket x plus b squared plus c, expanding it out and then equating the relevant coefficients from each term. So start with the brackets, and I get a bracket, multiplying it out, I get x squared plus 2bx plus b squared, and then I've got a plus c outside. Multiply out the bracket by a, so I've then got ax squared plus 2abx plus ab squared plus c. Now I can look at each of these and equate each part of this to the relevant part in the original quadratic. So doing that, equating the coefficients of x squared, I'll get that a is equal to negative 2. Equating the coefficients of the x, I get 2ab is equal to negative 12. Well, I already know that a is negative 2, so that just means I've got 2 times negative 2 times b is equal to negative 12. So negative 4b is equal to negative 12. So b is equal to 3. And then the same for the last part. I've got ab squared plus c, and I know that's going to equal 7. I know what a is, I know what b is, substitute them in, and let's find a value for c. So I've got negative 2 times 3 squared plus c is equal to 7. Negative 2 times 3 squared, that's negative 2 times 9. Negative 2 times 9 is a negative 18. So I've got negative 18 plus c is equal to 7. So c is equal to 25. Now that I know what c is, what I have to do is, yes, I've discovered them, but the question wants me to express it in that form. So I then have to still go back and say, what that means is I get negative 2 bracket x plus 3 squared plus 25. Exact same answer as the other technique. Again, doesn't matter which of the two you pick the one that works best for you and just make sure that you get it right. Remember, understand, get the answer right. That's the two big things for us, regardless of which technique you pick. So 3 marks for this type of question here. You get 1 mark in this method on the left for taking out the -2. You get 2 marks for getting to this stage here where you've got -2 bracket x plus 3 squared. Now remember, it's just that part. The plus 18 plus 7 doesn't worry and doesn't come into mark 2, but it is relevant for mark 3. And if you do the technique on the right, you get 1 mark for knowing your big expansion, the ax squared plus 2abx plus ab squared plus c. You get your second mark for equating each part up with the coefficients and getting the values of a, b and c. And then you get your final mark for expressing it in the relevant form. Now, it's not a difficult skill to come up with. The fact there's multiple ways of doing it is great. It means you can tailor it to the way that you work and the way that your brain prefers to think. Like I said before, just make sure you understand it and you get it right, and you'll find this type of question easy peasy, lemon squeezy.